and welcome to the latest episode of Southside Stories, where we talk to leaders, entrepreneurs, um, and other interesting leaders in business, particularly those who've got some kind of London angle, that sometimes we move a bit beyond that. Just a quick reminder, just please consider hitting subscribe, hitting notifications. We've got some really awesome guests coming up, so get notified as they appear. Really thrilled though, this afternoon or today we have Erik from Spekk. Hi, Erik.
Hey, Matt. Thanks so much for having me.
No, it's great to see you. And we're going to have a great conversation. Today is all about marketing. And Erik runs a very successful marketing agency with a particular kind of focus area and a particular kind of spin on what his agency does. So Erik, let's start there. I mean, tell us a little bit about yourself and your job title and just the top line on the company.
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Erik Lehmann. I'm originally Swedish, but I moved to London in 2010 and haven't looked back since. As you mentioned, I'm one of the founders of Spekk, which is a digital advertising agency focused exclusively on those companies that have sort of high consideration products and more premium brands.
Great, and we're going to unpick some of that in a second. But Erik, I'm always interested in people's backgrounds. How did you get to this point? What was your career journey like? Why did you start your own agency?
Sure. I actually started as a strategy consultant, which I loved the sort of problem-solving aspect of it. I found that really interesting, and the diversity of the different types of clients and industries you would work in. I did really lack the creative element of it. And so I wanted to sort of move into marketing. But the first job I took there was with Pernod Ricard, the big French spirits conglomerate. And specifically, I worked for the brand company that manages Absolut Vodka's brand globally. So I worked for a specialist team there, and our responsibility was helping with the transitioning from Absolut sort of traditional advertising heritage into an experiential and digitally led focus, which was just an incredible place to learn everything about sort of the new era of marketing 10, 15 years ago, right? From there, I became the group CMO for a British company where I basically oversaw strategy and execution for 5 different travel and experience brands targeted at millennials at that time. And then, so from there, sort of, the starting Spekk and coming into the agency, I think what I realized there was I loved being more hands-on than I was at Absolut. Absolut became very conceptual, which was great early in your career to understand those sort of strategy frameworks and how to apply them. But then when I moved to the sort of smaller company where I was the CMO, I got to actually apply them, see the results, and see how that sort of transpired into real world actions. Having done that sort of journey that we managed to do with that company and turn some of those products around, I felt like that was the fun part of it. And that's what I wanted to do more of. Coming into the more maintenance mode for that wasn't as interesting as sort of reaching out, doing my own thing together with the partner and actually applying the strategic lessons that I had and all those actions to really building other brands.
Fantastic. The Absolut years, that sounds like a dream job. That sounds a lot of fun, was it?
Yeah, for 22 or 23-year-old Erik or whatever I was, it was pretty perfect. But it was perfect because it mixed 2 things, right? It mixed something interesting because Absolut is very involved with culture in many different ways, whether it's music or sort of all popular culture, music, arts, all of it. We got to go to some incredible events. We got to produce some incredible events that really moved the needle in terms of experiential creativity. So that was obviously amazing on one side. The other side, and I think this is partly due to Absolut's headquarters being based in Stockholm, they just attracted, because there's a lot of expats in Stockholm, right? But there's not a lot of global brands that are based in Stockholm. So I think they almost got like a discount on some world-class marketing talent. So being in that environment for your formative years of your career where you're really getting out was priceless. It felt like the McKinsey for marketing, if you will. You were just close to so many extremely good marketing leaders.
Fantastic. Yeah, great to have that experience early on in your career. So let's move to Spekk then. Tell me about how long have you guys been going for now?
Since 2018. So 7 years now.
And what type of clients do you work with typically?
Yeah, so The umbrella term we have for it, right, that I mentioned in the beginning is high
Mm,
consideration products. And
mm,
we sort of, you can define that in many different ways. I like to think of it as like they're either one of three things. Either they're a very high price level, right? So people need to consider this purchase a little bit more than they would just a normal run of the mill product that is cheap, right? And that's like, more expensive than their competitive set. So it can be 200 pounds for a swimsuit or 300 pounds for pajamas, like something that will make people go, I'm gonna like think on that a little bit more, right?
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
one thing that would like make the consideration journey longer or make it high consideration product. Another is if they're more complex in their nature. So that might have to do with that they're a health offering or a beauty offering where you need to explain the science behind it, or it could be like a tech company that you just as a marketeer you need to explain a few more things to the consumer before they will be comfortable making a decision. So it again longer consideration journey, more information that they need to process. And lastly is if it's a very niche like audience or they're only for a select few. So it becomes more difficult. You can't do mass marketing. You can't even do like broad marketing. You have to really be strategic about finding out who are the people that are actually right for this product. So that's generally how we define that.
I guess when I think about my own purchase behavior, for those, yeah, for any item that's not an instant kind of no regret, cheap, quick, easy buy, yeah, I guess I and many others would go into sort of a bit of a research mode. And I think Google maybe 10 years ago had this zero moment of truth uh, methodology. And that I think was something around 10 to 11 hours of content, 7 touch points across 4 platforms. It was quite a lengthy, longish interaction period. And of course now, I mean, that was 10 plus years ago. And now we're in this world, which is, much more complicated, much more fragmented. We're bombarded with stuff all the time. Tell us a little bit about how do you maintain and build that consideration? Because I guess one of the distinguishing factors here might be length of time it takes
Okay.
me to make a decision. Tell us a little bit how that looks like for you and your clients.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. It is very often about the longer consideration periods, which in itself creates a lot of challenges for brands. And I'm sure we'll come on to sort of tracking and attribution and things like that. But in terms of the biggest challenge here from a purely marketing standpoint is how do you manage to stay top of mind without being annoying or too aggressive, right? So
Mm.
like the journey that you described, let's say you're buying a new car or a very expensive bed or whatever it may be. Our job as marketeers is showing up to you quite a lot, quite often, but not in a way that it ever makes you be like, this feels like they're too aggressive or this feels trashy or I'm tired of this brand now. I don't want to see anymore. And what that means in turn is it puts a very high demand on your content creation and your strategy and how that marries up with the paid media. So what content are we going to show them? Roughly in what order? What different messages does these different pieces of content need to cover to really make sure that we convince them of the right things? What's the balance between more brand-led and more creative content versus more functional product content that speaks to the logic side of the brain? Whereas the more creative and brand stuff is supposed to speak a little bit more to your emotional side or the magic of things, right? So I think for a lot of brands, creating that whole journey and being able to marry the creative side and the content that you need to produce with the frequency of how often you're going to show up and to whom you're going to show up, that's really the crux of it and what we're figuring out for our clients.
Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday actually because I went to an e-commerce site. It was called My Teresa. They're like a vendor of luxury clothes and so on. And it's a typical thing. You go to the website, you've been cookied, and then for the last 3-4 days, all I've seen is My Teresa ads. To the extent where I went to the Guardian UK newspaper site yesterday, and there was a massive banner at the top, and it became just so irritating because the frequency over 3 days was probably like 10, uh, 10 opportunities to see per day. And it just became too much. And it's interesting what you're saying about what type of content do you serve when? I mean, for them, it might make sense because it was a very kind of they have a sale, they want you to complete a transaction.
What's the price point roughly?
A lot, their stuff is, probably couple of hundred quid on average
Mm-hmm.
for, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, a pair of shoes. It's sort of beyond typical high street prices.
Okay.
But they're always directing me back to, a product on sale. And I can understand why they do that. But if they were serving me some other stuff in the mix, it might have kept me on the brand journey, because now I've just gone down into shutdown mode. Every time I see one of those ads, I just want to kill it off. Tell me a little bit more about how you plan, a campaign, and maybe an example here would be useful about
Sure.
what type of content you might serve when in that journey.
Sure. Look, I think what's important for us and our clients is that you need to be able to have multiple campaigns going at the same time that are for people that are at different times in their consideration journey, right? So if we have let's take a festival, for example, right? You going to a festival with some of your friends, that takes a lot of coordination. It's going to be, it's going to be pretty expensive. It might be one of the more expensive things you're going to spend money on that year, etc. So we can often see that from us serving the first ad to them actually buying it, that might be up to, let's say 6 months, right? However, there may be some people that have already heard about this festival and have already done 3 months out of their 6-month consideration, right? And then our job is to identify, okay, who are those people that are seeing this festival for the first time? They've never heard about it before, and they're likely going to take 6 months. They're getting into one funnel and one campaign, right? Where the content that we're hitting them with in the beginning is way more brand focused, way more just trying to get their attention and introduce this thing for the first time to them. Whereas the person who's coming in, who's maybe heard about the festival from a friend or whatever, they're going to come in a little bit hotter, right? We need to explain a little bit less, and we can go a little bit heavier on the conversion. And how we identify that is due to their behavior, right? So I think what might have happened in your case here, if you've clicked around quite a lot on the website, you've probably signaled that you're quite warm. Like you might have been deep into product pages. You might have even put something in the cart. So probably whatever agency is running their paid media have identified you as a very, very warm lead that should get a lot of conversion driving ads. And then I think it's a brand decision on how aggressive you want to be. We don't, for the brands that we have, they would hate it. Like the founders would hate it to hear the comment that you just made of it got too much. Because yes, if you just follow the data, that's going to convert a lot of people that are very bottom of the funnel. It's going to scare some off, but the main issue with it is that it's going to deteriorate the brand, and it's not going to feel premium to you anymore. It's going to feel like quite a desperate brand, right? So coming back to the festival example, our job is to always have content and content funnels and campaigns running for multiple different stages in this journey, and then trying to figure out where are people entering this journey based on their behavior, and how are we then going to show up to them. And then a lot of it is just about variety, whichever funnel you're in, even if it's at the bottom of the funnel, especially for a lifestyle product like a festival. You never want to sound desperate. We're very against discounts. We're very against the sort of yes, you need some urgency messaging, right? Like festivals, it would often be selling out, but what can you creatively do to make those, sound less like a London nightclub promoter in the 90s, right? Like you got to apply a creative twist to that and make it more interesting to people while still pushing the urgency and getting them to take action.
And either sticking with the festival example or maybe another, give us some flavor of what different types of content you might serve in terms of pure content or video, or a more direct sort of buy ticket type
Sure.
ad. What does that look like?
Yeah, let's take. It might be interesting to take a beauty brand example here, because they have a quite interesting mix of content that we're doing for them. So in their case, they're focused on anti-aging. Their main product is a near infrared laser that you use on your face to get rid of wrinkles and increase sort of collagen production in your skin. So on that, they have a brand proposition around helping people take control of their aging and feeling like they're in charge of what's happening and not just a victim to changes in their body, right? So we will do more emotional brand content around that. That can be 20 to 30-second videos that are, giving the first-hand perspective of someone that is going through this journey and how they may feel. It might be more sort of inspiring and showing people that have done big reversals and things like that. But it's about giving their point of view on aging, giving their point of view on how you don't need to just sit and watch something happen that you don't enjoy. You can actually get back in the driver's seat of that, speaking to the emotional side. Then we will have more middle of the funnel stuff, which will be around credibility and social proof, right? This is a very expensive device. It's like 2,500 quid to buy this laser, right? So you want to see other people that have used it. You want to see press reviews. You want to see awards. Like we have a whole category of that, which is simpler statics that are just showing up after you've bought in emotionally, or you're attracted to this, or you've seen the before and after image, right? And you're like, I want to learn more. That's when we go over to speaking a bit more to the logical side with statics and very short form animations of these like awards, testimonials, and press. Then we have another sort of logical bit, which is we make rapid fire FAQ videos with their scientists. So we will look at Trustpilot reviews, we will look at customer service inquiries, and we will map out what is it that people are most hesitant about or most curious about. And then we will film these like short, snappy 30-second, we just start with a question on screen and then the scientist goes in and explain it. And then all the way down to then creating the urgency and getting people to actually do this. And that's a lot about, with this particular product with anti-aging, we're honing in on messaging around how everybody wished they would have started sooner, right? It's like the best time to start with this is yesterday. So we're trying to tap into the emotion of not procrastinating this decision and actually going straight to it, to starting to see the results quite quickly. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. I mean, that's a great explanation, and I love the way you're kind of splitting out the kind of the way that we make decisions as human beings, which is a combination of logic and but actually emotion is normally the thing that really gets us there. Tell me a little bit about, because that sounds like a really great campaign to work on, because you're sort of doing so many different angles and you've got different channels to market, different types of creative. Tell me a little bit about how you work with clients. I mean, when clients approach you, how sophisticated are the clients themselves now in getting to this type of marketing? How do you work with clients? How do you develop, a campaign? Maybe with a beauty brand might be a great example there.
Yeah, I would say that the level of sophistication between our clients differ quite a lot, and it also differs quite a lot what they are good at and not. I think generally, if we're speaking now, I'm making a sweeping statement across the board. I think brands are generally further ahead in their performance marketing, and it's usually because they've had many agencies before that have sort of helped them get there. Not a lot of brands that we work with are super strong in-house on that, but usually they're quite sophisticated in knowing what they're looking for, et cetera, on that side. Where most of them are really behind right now is on the creative, and that's both in creative output, like the amount of content that you actually need to put out now if you have a slightly more significant paid media budget, and the quality of it. And by quality, I don't necessarily mean, is this subjectively a good video or not? I mean, is this a fit for purpose social ad? So all of them produce content, and they've been doing that for a long time before. The bottleneck is often like, we need more of it, and we need stuff that is really specific for paid social ads, because the old stuff and just repurposing your normal brand campaign shoot, it just doesn't fly anymore. You can do a little bit of that, but you also need to do a lot of the like specifically produced for social.
Yes, it's interesting because when I first started my marketing career, everything that we produce, this is going back to the mid-90s and onwards, was typically, it was very polished. It was high production standards, whether it was advertising or print, and even extending into the early days of digital. Whereas these days, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. It seems to be almost, well, the question for you is there still a role for that very kind of high-end production, beautiful ads? And clearly for some brands, you pick up a glossy magazine, not that there are many of those around anymore, but you still see the high-end, beautiful photography. But sometimes it seems to be almost the reverse, that the more kind of authentic, the more realistic, the closer it is to a real life customer, perhaps the more kind of powerful it is. And I'm getting to also the role of kind of influencers as well in this particular piece. What's your view of that?
Yeah, we could have a whole podcast only on this topic. I'm very passionate about it for many different ways. I'll try and be brief. I think there's definitely still a role for polished content. I think it's coming around soon, a bit full circle, where it's going to be more and more important again. Because just as you explained, I think the sort of what's referred to as ugly ads or like the UGC stuff, or just someone picking up a phone in their bathroom and being like, "Hey, I use this." There's also still a role for that, but I think people have now started registering that as the typical ad as opposed to the polished one, almost, right? So I think that's going to come a little bit full circle. I think the more premium you are as a brand, the slower you should be to let go your polished stuff. It's not going to perform as well in platform. So most paid media agencies, by just looking at the data that they have in platform, will tell their brands, stop wasting your money on polished shoots, just go do the UGC stuff and we'll drive more conversions for you. And for many, that's true. But what that measurement fails to take into account is what happens on a 1, 2, 3 year horizon, right? You're going to devalue your brand. And a lot of these brands that have been doing a lot of polished content for a very long time are actually very good at it. Their campaigns look beautiful, and that's still very aspirational. So you need to keep doing that to not devaluate your brand. What you need to do is change it a little bit to actually feel more, relevant culturally to our platforms. Because if you think about what you now look at on your phone when you see ads, those are often like humorous things as reels or really beautiful things, or like, but it's quicker cuts. It's not just like a mosaic of beautiful imagery without a storyline. Like, you have to adapt to the platforms, but you can still do it with high quality, nice grading, beautiful models, like good editing techniques, etc. So I'm like, what we're trying to do with our creative studio is really bridging the gap between, yes, it can look polished. No, it doesn't have to be a 5-day shoot that is going to blow your entire content budget on one thing, right? We're really trying to be, okay, we need to make commercially viable ads that will perform, but we also need to have the confidence as a brand and as an agency to do stuff that we're genuinely proud of and that reflects our brand. And if we do those things well, we can take the tried and tested e-commerce formats, we can take a more creative and beautiful twist on them, and we can put stuff out that will convert, maybe not as much as the ugly ads will in the short term, but that over the year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, the horizon we try and take with our clients will both elevate their brand or keep their brand as elevated as it is and be, effective social ads.
Great. Tell me a bit about the attribution then. So you're building these great campaigns. Now I can see probably in the festival example, where I'm going to go with this is sort of offline versus online. Because I guess with the online purchase, you've typically cookied me or you've dropped some tag on me. You can probably tell how many times I've seen the campaign, maybe what the last, thing I saw was, and I go and buy a ticket and I convert. But I'd love to hear a bit more from you on that. Versus maybe in the beauty thing, I could go and buy a beauty product at this is getting rarer and rarer, of course, but I could maybe go and buy that product in a retail environment. Tell us how you attribute all the great work you're doing to actual, the dollars hitting the road and proving your campaign ROI back to the client.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so attribution was already difficult 10 years ago. It's become extremely messy now, as you'll be aware, and even more messy for high consideration products with the long consideration journey. So it's a very, very good question. What we do is we try to avoid looking too much at the in-platform metrics, meaning like what Meta says was the attributed revenue, or what they say which ads are working and not. The issue is that they will always overvalue what is called like last click purchase, or like the last activity you did before purchasing something, which is very rarely, in our case, the thing that actually made the purchase happen, right? Unless you get it. So what we try and do, you use festivals as an example. That's a very good one because it's a very long journey. We try to be a bit more manual, and there's some smart things we can do here, right? Like, I'll give you one example, but there's many more. One thing that we do is we can track who signed up to the waiting list via clicking an ad. And then we can compare when they actually purchased a ticket. Like, we can look after the festival cycle is gone and we can see, right, we can prove that that person came in via an ad with very high likelihood because we were the ones that drove the sign up, the first contact with the brand. We drove that sign up with an ad. So if they then purchased a ticket 6 months later, we can be fairly confident, we can see that they clicked on a bunch of more ads, but most importantly, we can see that we were very early in capturing that new customer into the net of this client. So like we tried to go like that. We also do, to your other example of what if we do a bunch of ads and then someone actually just walks into a store and purchases something, even harder to keep track of. And this we can't say with certainty, but things that we try there sometimes is what we called geo holdout testing, which essentially means that we'll take two different cities, let's say Birmingham and Newcastle, right? We'll say Birmingham and Newcastle. We'll do different, for a period of time, let's say 2 months, we'll do completely different campaigns in those two different geographies. And then we will measure, the starting point versus the month before, the year before, with the end point versus the month before and the year before. And we can see what's the delta in those geographies based on which type of campaigns we were running. So again, it's like slightly more manual, it's slightly more tedious, but we tend to trust those types of things. Like if we can show that by doing another type of campaign in Newcastle, we had an incremental revenue increase overall in the business. It can be both, revenue generated from that area. It could be revenue generated online or revenue generated in store. If we can prove that happened, and the only thing that was different was the types of campaigns we were running or the content that we were running there, or the messaging that we were running, we can say with a lot more certainty that seems to be a very good indicator of what's working and not, as opposed to trusting blindly what Meta is telling us is the ad or the campaign that is converting.
Great. Good answer. Let's move to sort of running an agency, what that feels like. And we'll include sort of technology in this in a second. One question for you in terms of, obviously you'll have your growth ambition. Well, let's start there. Tell us what your ambition is. I mean, up to you if you want to include real numbers here, but sort of where are you right now? Where would you like to get to in the next couple of years?
Yeah. We had a really good meeting among the partners and the leadership team just half a year ago where we discussed that we are ambitious. We want to grow the top line revenue by about 3x in 5 years. However, we are very committed to doing that organically and sustainably. We've had a spur of growth that came too quickly over COVID that had its backlash and its hangovers. So we've experienced that, and we're not going to do that again. And I think the key for us is the way we want to grow the agency is not by becoming mass. Like we don't want to have hundreds of clients and hundreds of employees. We'd much rather keep it quite limited, aim for something like 30 clients in total and 30 employees, and just become more effective and be able to charge each client more, as opposed to just blindly growing for the sake of growth, if that makes sense. So we're much more on the train of like becoming an expert agency that can justify very high fees with a very lean and effective operation, as opposed to a mass agency that is working with just really big brands and trying to cream out as much as possible from that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to ask you because if you were not a brand that had a high consideration product, maybe it was lower price point, FMCG or something like that, would you? It's quite hard to turn down money, isn't it? But would you stick to your kind of core proposition that you've been building out, which is the experts in this high consideration product set? Is that how rigidly do you think you're going to be as you start to try and get to your? I mean, 3x growth in 5 years would be not impossible, but that's a great ambition to have.
It's a really good question, right? I think we managed to hold strong once or twice already, but I think I'd be a fool to say, just blanket answer, we will always stick to our guns no matter what in terms of product category. I think what it would have to be, this is how I would evaluate it. If there was a very big brand that came knocking on our door that had a product that in and of itself wasn't a high consideration product by the definition that we have, for us to seriously consider it, I think the marketing case at hand would need to be really interesting or in itself a bit more complex, right? So I don't think we'd be super interested in the brief, which was just like, hey, just like sell more of this toilet roll, right? But if it was, hey, we're entering a new market and we're taking a completely new proposition to toilet roll. We're going to do it on subscription, and we're going to take, we're going to increase the price a little bit, and we're going to make it premium branded and in crazy colorways and whatever, right? That could speak to us, because then the case itself is figuring out something that still requires the level of strategy that we have with our team, that still requires that type of brain and creativity that would make us use our resources correctly. But we wouldn't want to participate in just a general like race to the bottom of just selling more stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Tell us about finding those clients then. So you've got a particular client in mind, a particular kind of brief in mind. How do you approach your business development?
The referrals.
Yeah.
It's the only thing we do. Yeah. And a lot can be said for or against that. What we like about it, other than it being a very cheap way to do business development, but what it does is it does give a little bit of a safety net for us in terms of quality of clients. Like if you spray and pray and just get people through the door, it's more of a gamble. And as an entrepreneur, the clients that you have will very much dictate the mood of everybody that works with you, your own mood, how much you enjoy or don't enjoy your life outside of work as well, right? So for us, having referrals and it's just friends of friends or clients of clients are always the best source of finding like-minded individuals.
Yeah, well, it's a great position to find yourself in. That it's a good testament to the quality of work that you do as well. If you are saying we're going to rely on referrals and you are proving that works for you, that's a great testament to the work.
Yeah, and
I
think it puts nice accounts and balances in, right? Because rather than spending a bunch of time going out and finding new clients, which I think is the main sort of activity from a lot of other agency founders that I know, to be honest, we just know that, well, our thing is putting those extra hours into sort of surprise and delight the clients, or delivering extra value to them. And then the other thing hopefully works itself out, which so far, yes, it has. And we're very lucky for that. But we've also worked really hard for that, because I think it's one thing for a client to be satisfied. It's a whole other level for them to go and say, hey, I know a really great company. You should work with them too. Right. So I think it automatically puts the focus where it should be. And it helps us as sort of a North Star of like, why are we doing this? We're doing this to help clients. And when we do that really, really successfully, they're going to want to help us. And that creates quite a beautiful loop.
Yeah. How does AI and technology show up in your world right now? I mean, clearly it's moving at an incredible pace. I was looking at, I think it's called VO3 from Google last week, and that's mind bending how much that's come on in the last year. And, we're still really at the start of things like AI. But I mean, more broadly, though, I mean, how is technology helping you, both in terms of, I don't know, creativity, but also just the economics of running an agency profitably?
Yeah. I mean, I think if we divide technology into sort of software and AI, which is obviously a type of software, but just to make that distinction, I think we're an agency, like we're a fully remote agency. All our processes hinge on, project management tools, Slack every single day, like all of those things. Like running our agency right now without technology would just be impossible. And sometimes too many tools can become overwhelming for people, or it could slow you down. But I think we're at the stage now where we've mastered the most important ones, and they just save us a tremendous amount of time and headache by, automations and using project management software in an effective way. So that's on the one side. AI, so far to us, has been incredibly helpful, but not revolutionary, is where I would say so far. I think it will be very soon. The way we use it throughout recruitment quite a lot to help us craft case studies, help us give a second opinion, which is obviously much more unbiased on candidates and screening CVs and things like this. That's one side. On the creative side of things, it's become a great thought partner, someone to spar with. Like, we're quite a small creative studio. We don't always have new, influencers and stuff coming in. And then it's amazing to sit with ChatGPT, for example, and throw in ideas and get more ideas back and sort of just as a sparring partner. We don't find that so far we've ever been able to use something. It's put out just right away, right? There's always the human element that needs to come over it and perfect it and craft it, but it's great for spitballing ideas and sending your brain in a different direction. So that's been really powerful. We use Midjourney a lot. Like all of our website imagery is actually generated through Midjourney. We've dabbled with that for some clients as well, which is really interesting. Voiceovers, huge thing for us. That used to be such a pain to do good videos with voiceover artists, getting them into a studio. Now we turn them around immediately, right? That's been huge. And I think what I'm waiting for AI to still do, which I actually, unpopular opinion, I think this is going slower than I thought it would, is all the mechanical stuff around creativity that it still doesn't do well, or at least I haven't seen it. So if anyone is watching this and they have the soul for it, please hit me up. But just taking a 9:16 formatted ad and cutting that to 2 other formats. I can't believe that we're still doing that with designers in 2025. And I know that there are a lot of tools that claim that they can do it. And yes, they get it into the size, but it doesn't have the designer's eye of saying, right, but then the text should go here instead, or, but that's what I'm really looking forward to. That's when I think it would become a huge time saver for us, so that I can use I have an excellent designer, but she's spending a lot of her time cutting and formatting and making sure that looks good. And I would love to move her on to being truly creative instead, and having AI fix all of that stuff.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, it's very powerful, very useful for just eliminating them. Well, should be anyway in time, eliminating the mundane tasks. I know just the video stuff that I do is that you can go from 9:16 horizontal to a vertical format. But yeah, it should. You think it would be fairly easy, but it still needs that human intervention just to review. But piling a whole bunch of creative into that, and then, okay, here are all the formats I need, and then it comes out the other end. It's completely brilliantly formatted. That would be a big time saving. Yeah,
for sure.
I love that idea though of the sparring partner. I love that phrase, by the way. That's a really good way to think about it. Can we build on campaigns? Can we spin other aspects to campaigns we hadn't thought about? Can we pit our creative brains to ChatGPT? It's kind of, can it level up the humanness of what we're doing? Ironically, using kind of AI to kind of sharpen you up and get the creative to be in an even better place.
Yeah. And research is the other thing I forgot to mention. Incredibly valuable for that, right? Like going through consumer insights work that used to take us 2-3 weeks can be done in 2 to 3 days to almost the same level. That's been a real breakthrough, actually. And just getting an unbiased opinion on stuff like that. For example, I spoke to a founder of a fashion brand yesterday. She did a brilliant thing. She said, review my company and compare its online positioning to 2 of our competitors. And she got this sort of outside in view that is just completely honest. It's not an agency trying to kiss her ass. It's not, it's not a friend that needs to be a little bit nice to her. It just gave it plain out, like, this is what you are, this is what you're not, this is what they are, and this is what they're not. And this is where we see that you could fit in or how you could change, which I thought was really, really interesting use of it.
Very, very. Let's switch to a little bit about just team and culture, because I'm interested in, this is another one of those recurring topics. AI is one, but working from home remotely versus centralized teams working together, this is a big one that comes up a lot. I would say the majority of business owners, and maybe 2/3 of them, sort of generally say to me, we're doing hybrid, and I would prefer actually if it was more like 4+ days in the office. You've actually gone to fully remote. Tell me a little bit, and clearly that's got great advantages, but also some pros and cons too. And I'm thinking here of maybe how do you build cohesiveness, culture. Tell me a little bit about that. How has that worked out for you?
It's worked out really, really well. I think we had a bit of a blessing in that we grew a lot during COVID when there was no choice other than being remote, right? So all of our processes, everything is designed for the ground up to be remote friendly, or well, remote required really. So we don't really have a before and after to compare with. Like, this is just how we natively grew up as a fully remote company. The things that I love about it is our recruitment pool is worldwide. Like, if you think of what an agency really is, it's finding the best people and training them as well as possible, and then having good processes for them to deliver really, really good results for their clients, right? So if my main thing is recruiting good people in this day and age, why limit that to a geographical area when we have the whole world to look for that talent in? So that's, I think, the number one. Um, that said, I'm a firm believer of that people need to meet in real person to create real relationships. So what we've done off the back of that is realizing, like, yes, we are a remote company. What we save on not having an office, we put into having people being able to come 3 times a year on nice team offsites, where we mix, like, it's a lot of work during those. We do usually 4 or 5 days somewhere in Europe. So we just came back now 2 weeks ago from Lisbon, where we do sort of team building, and then we work a bit together, and then we do sort of workshops on how we improve Spekk and what it's like working there, right? Those are imperative, and us doing 3 a year, it's obviously quite expensive, but I have no doubt in my mind that there's a net positive impact on the business there. I wouldn't want to have a fully remote business where people saw each other once a year, said hi, because then I don't think you actually build friendships, and I do think those are super important. Do I think we'll ever get an office and force people to go in there 3 or 4 times a day because it sort of tickles my control sense? No, I don't.
Yeah, no, that's great. Do you ever worry? Do you ever think about productivity? Does that ever cross your mind as a worry or concern?
No, honestly not. I think,
Yeah,
look, like I think it puts a different profile, like it puts a higher demand on the people that we recruit. Like, we really look for natural born overachievers, like people who are intrinsically motivated. And I think everybody looks for that, obviously. So we're not unique in that. But I think the pressure on that when you are fully remote is higher. It needs to be someone who genuinely wants to do really well, not only for us, not only for the clients, but for themselves, and take pride in that. And as long as we have that, which I'm now very comfortable that we have 20 of those people working with us, I really couldn't be bothered if they want to take 2 hours off and go surfing, because I know that that's what's going to make them feel good. They're going to do 2 hours in the evening if they needed to crank something out. They'll pull an even longer night some other week when we really need it. But I just, yeah, I just, from my own sake, I know that I don't work best from a 9 to 6 schedule. And I think a lot of the people that we work with are the same. They just need to be able to control their own time a little bit and feel trusted. And so far, no one has misused that trust. And with the process, like, we have quite, as we were on before, our processes are quite strict. Like, it would be very hard to just sit and do nothing for a week. Yeah. We're not at that size yet either, right? Like, maybe my answer would be different if we were way more people. And I can sympathize with those entrepreneurs who can feel like, holy shit, I have 100 people. I have no way of keeping control of what everybody does. So I'm going to be a bit humble in that. But as it feels right now, I'm all in on letting people control their time and work when they work best.
Quick supplemental to that, because that's a great comment. You really try and recruit the best people, the overachievers. How do you, when they're onboarded, how do you multiply their talents? How do you keep them delivering on all the potential that you saw when you were onboarding them and all the effort that requires? How do you get the best out of your people, those really great hires that you brought in? How do you keep them? Because agency world does seem to be an industry where the people do move around quite a lot. So how do you really get people to flourish and stay with you?
Yeah, it's an amazing question. And as you say, agency world, it's an extremely vulnerable type of job, right? Because you both have your own manager, and then you have multiple clients, and each of those clients have no incentive to care about your other clients, right? They're just worried about, what are you doing for me? They're not even aware of who the other clients are. So it's very hard for them to help you prioritize. So it's an extreme pressure job. And I think that has a lot to do with the very high sort of turnaround that agencies have with staff. Our main retention model, I think, is showing that we really care about people, having their back when they have problems, and like not just leave them to the clients and be like, you figure it out, but actually coming in and helping them, whether that's us as founders or whether it's doing groups of employees that can help, do problems together, figure out problems together with different perspectives. So I think it's a lot of in the work. I think we get them to believe in the vision and where we're heading with the agency. I think we're always quite transparent and genuine with them, which I don't think people take for granted in the agency world. So I do think they feel quite involved and included. And then number three is that I think really the overinvestment in culture and bringing people together and doing fun stuff and making those team trips not just feel like something we have to do as a management team, but actually like stay at a really nice, like Lisbon now, like we stayed at a really nice hotel. We took them out sailing. We took we had all these different activities. We did a full workshop, actually 2 hours of just hearing what are your major stressors right now and how can we problem solve that together. So I think it's like transparency, listening to them, figuring out when they have a problem, supporting them and not leaving them on their own, and showing that we want to invest in them and actually build a culture of friends here that are doing something cool together.
Awesome. Where do I sign up? Sounds great. Let's move to the final question. It's a question I ask everybody, and reflections on leadership. So you've gone from it's a great early career, but working for somebody else, and now you're a co-founder with this amazing agency. You've got all these fantastic people. 2 last questions. Tell me about your leadership style and how you think that has changed, especially since you've been running Spekk. And let's cover that one first.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think how my leadership style has changed. I think it has. I do think there's a bit of an impact on leaving the office, right? So when I was at Day 8, which was the group of travel companies, we were in an office every day, and my leadership style was very much like a lot of huddles with the team, coming in with a lot of energy and using humor to motivate people, recognizing where people were sort of annoyed or maybe frustrated with upper management and protecting them from that, and also working with them to always have their backs and be present. I would sum that up with. That is harder to do now, and I think I've automatically had to gone over to a slightly more trust and delegate type of leadership style, just because there isn't really an option. That's kind of what I need to do with everything that I just explained with how we operate. I hope I can still be inspiring, but I don't have as many touch points with them anymore. But I try to sort of bring that to every team tip that we're doing or anything like that. And I hope I've matured a bit in looking at it from a higher level. At least I try to like set the objective and then back away and only come in to remove roadblocks or when there's support needed, as opposed to laying out every single step in the process and being a hawk over it. I don't think I'm fully there yet. I don't know if I'll ever be, but I do think I'm moving in. Well, the feedback I'm getting is that I'm moving in a good direction when it comes to that, like set a high level goal and then trust someone to get on with it, but always be there when they need support or they want another input.
That's great. And who's a leader that you have found in your life that's had a great influence on your career or leadership? And I've had all sorts of answers to this one. Quite often it's somebody early in a career that's been really influential, but I've had Churchill. I've had all sorts of people.
Right, okay. So it can be someone that has actually led me, or it can be someone inspiring.
Yeah.
Cool. Can I give you both, actually?
Yes,
I have
please.
2. Yeah. Nice. So the person that has actually led me was that has had a really great impact on my career was the last manager I had at Absolute. I only worked with him for about 2 or 3 months, and I handed in my notice after just a month there, which was only to do with opportunity and having been offered this incredible job with Day 8. So it was obviously not about him at all. But I remember having, in a big company like that, your development calls are sort of scheduled quarterly. And so my development call was right before I was going to leave Absolute. So I had just assumed that he would scrap it to save time, right? Because why is he giving a development call to me when I'm leaving in 2 weeks? Instead, he showed up to that call the most prepared anyone has ever been for a development call that I've ever had in my career. He had tailored the whole development call to help me now become a manager for the first time in my life. He knew that I was going from being a brand manager to being a CMO, which is a huge jump. So he had taken the time to almost lay out a roadmap of like, I've known you for a year. We'd only worked together for 3 months. Here's what I see are your strengths. Here's what I think you need to develop. And here are my general tips for you in now becoming a leader. And I think we sat for an hour and he walked me through it really, really nicely. And I just walked out of there thinking like, wow, what a great unselfish leader who would spend that amount of time investing in me when he doesn't have any sort of personal incentive or return on this from the work I'll be doing for him.
Yeah, that is a fantastic example. I'm reading this book at the moment called Multipliers. It's a great read if you haven't come across it. And it talks about multipliers and diminishers. And diminishers are sort of people that just manage resource. They're often empire builders. And multipliers are people that are genuinely interested in the individual, and their growth, and how can they encourage that person to grow and actually be more productive and better. That guy sounds amazing, because that guy he was going to the person, and he was really thinking hard about you and where you were going to go in your career. I bet you that guy he sounds like a fantastic leader. I wonder if he's still there, encouraging and multiplying his talents around him.
He left after a while. He became the CMO of a very successful Swedish athleisure brand, and he brought us in to do their digital marketing.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a beautiful journey together after that as well. And
Great.
I was actually one of the references. Like, I had to give a reference to him when he was recruited for that job, so I got to return the favor with a very genuine, sort of glowing review, right? Because I was very impressed. So it was a very nice little circle of life there.
Fantastic. So that was one great. That's a brilliant example. You were going to mention another one, I think.
Oh yeah, right. And one that I haven't unfortunately been led by personally, but that really inspires me if we look more at outside of my own direct world, which is Professor Scott Galloway. Or do you know who that is? Yeah. I just think I've been following him for a pretty long time, and it's easy to fanboy him for a lot of reasons, but I think he particularly speaks to me in that he is a marketing and brand professor, right? But he's so knowledgeable and intelligent outside of the sphere of brand and marketing. And I think the way he articulates problems, the way he thinks about stuff, just every time I listen to his podcast, I'm just baffled at how someone can frame a problem like that, or have such a fundamental understanding of something that can break it down and make it so easy for everyone else. That's one part of the admiration. And then the other part of it is that I think he's now, especially in the latest couple of years, really using his platform to drive, significant political views and social issues that are obviously very important to him, and just, using that platform for good. And I think if you can get to a position in life where you're both really respected for your authority on different subjects, for your intelligence and how you can break down and explain things, but then you're also using that fame and success to try and impact the things that you really care about, is just really impressive. So he's a leader that I look up to in another way, that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, great example. Yeah, intellect. And he's one of those examples of great intellect that can, break down strategies and concepts. And he's just a brilliant communicator as well, isn't he? The way he delivers his content and his thoughts are is very, very powerful. Brilliant. Two great examples. Erik, thank you so much. That was a great conversation. Lots of fantastic examples there. I'm doing an event next week which includes things on leadership, and I'm going to use your example of the absolute executive giving you that amazing development meeting, even though you were leaving the company. That's a great example of a multiplier. Erik, thank you so much, and best of luck with your future growth ambitions for Spekk. Sounds like you're going to knock it out of the park, but good luck with that.
Thank you so much, Matt. Really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Me too. Thanks a lot.